The simple equation m1 v1 equals m2 v2 can be used to calculate concentrations for dilution problems. This video goes through the theory behind the use of this equation. Molarity is typically in moles per liter, and if you multiply that by liters, which is the units for volume, you end up with moles. If you do the same thing on the other side, multiplying the concentration in moles per liter times the volume in liters, you end up with an equation that basically says, in a dilution problem, the moles at the beginning equal the moles that you have at the end. The reason this works is because when you're diluting something, the amount of stuff you had in moles doesn't change. Assume we have a volume of 1 liter. And we have 1 mole of sodium chloride in that. The concentration would be 1 molar. If we add to that 1 liter of pure water, the only sodium chloride that was in the beginning is the only sodium chloride that'll be at the end. Again, we have a volume of 2 liters, but since we didn't add any new sodium chloride, our 1 mole of sodium chloride is now in 2 liters. So in our final solution, we have a molarity that equals 1 over 2, or 0.5. If you go back to that original equation, m1 v1 equals m2 v2, and you put in a molarity of 1 and a volume of 1. We don't know the molarity at the end, but we do know by adding the 1 liter and the 1 liter of water, we'll get a final volume of 2. If we rearrange, that gives us molarity 2 equals 1 times 1 divided by 2, or 0.5. So we can see in this picture method that adding the 2 liters together gives us a final volume of 2 liters, but since there's only 1 mole in it, we can calculate 1 mole divided by 2 gives us 0.5, or we can just plug the properties, 1 molar, 1 liter, final volume of 2 liters into this equation, and we get the same answer. Now look at what happened if we do this, but we mix 2 solutions of sodium chloride together. In this case, when we do that, we have 1 sodium chloride here, we have 2 sodium chlorides there, so in our final volume we would have 3 sodium chlorides. Based on this diagram, we can calculate the concentration of this final solution. 3 moles divided by 2 liters gives us a concentration of 1.5. Notice what would happen if we tried to use the m1 v1 equals m2 V2 to solve this problem. Our original molarity is 1, and our original volume was 1. We went to final volume of 2. Like before, we would calculate a final concentration of 0.5. But by looking at the picture, we should have a volume of 1.5. The reason this equation doesn't work in this case is because the moles isn't constant between the beginning and the end, because both of our solutions have some sodium chloride in it. Bottom line, this equation right here is for simple dilution. And that's when you're diluting with water. If you have two sources of the stuff that you want to calculate the concentration of, the moles and moles is not the same before and after. Therefore, you can't use the M1V1 equals M2V2 equation.